Hey guys, it's currently 1:42 a.m. and I'm out here in the car, and that can only mean one thing. It's time for another American Ninja Warrior review. I know there haven't been a lot of training videos recently, and that's mostly because of school starting and other activities. But recently it's been because of all this rain we've had. It it's been like the craziest rain I've seen in Florida so far, and it's made it really hard to film. Although I did film a couple of things with it, which will be posted at some point, I guess in the November training. But yeah, it's been interesting, but it's been hard to film because of that, and just because of other stuff. But anyway, let's get to the review before I run out of battery. Alright, anyway, on to the next episode that we're reviewing. I left off after episode 4 aired. Now we have to go through episodes 5 through 8, and starting with episode 5, which is the first semifinal episode. I really like this one, and I'm pretty biased about it because it had 4 new obstacles, which I'll always appreciate. It had the shrinking steps and off the hook, which were in the last qualifier, so that was the same. But then we got this new thing called Clockwork, which is cool. It's like it's a Lachey obstacle, but the parts of it are moved together, but it's like they're all attached, so it moves simultaneously. So it's a slightly different take on like kind of like a spring forward type of obstacle, in that you have to time it and control the swing. So I thought that was interesting. It looked pretty tough for a third obstacle, I thought, but it's a good addition, especially for semifinals. Then we had a new balance obstacle, which is good because those don't always come very often. It's called Burn Rubber, and it's basically the tires from Tire Run or Jeep Run from Vegas the last couple of years, but it's 3 of them in a row, and they're offset, so you have to like run diagonally across. And I think that's a good one. It's like, first of all, it's not so that hanging balance stuff that they always do, where it's just like a balls or the triangles hanging from strings. So I appreciated that right off the bat, and I thought it was just a good concept. So overall, I approved of that. The next new obstacle was the 8th obstacle, Rafter Salmon Ladder. It's corkscrew, and there was 3 spinning wheels, and you had to lachey to the first one, and then it would spin down. It would spin really fast and drop down. Then you have to lachey up to the second one, spin down it, and lachey the third one, and then spin down. And it was really tough. And it had 2 like really unique things. First of all, the spinning was really intense. It was like probably the fastest spinning thing they've had so far. And then they had the this upwards lachey that was pretty big compared to the usual. So I thought it was a good obstacle for bringing some different concepts into it. And that was the obstacle design challenge winner of the year. So I'm jealous, but I'm glad it won because it's much better than most obstacles I've seen. Then we have the dungeon is the last new obstacle. It's the penultimate one. And basically it starts like the slanted board with pegs on it. Not like pegs that you move, but just stationary pegs that you have to climb up. And then as you climb up them, it tilts the board like towards you. And you have to then once you make it to the top, the board will be like flat, like, and the pegs that you climbed up will be what's it called? Vertical. So you have to go across them vertically now, like nunchucks, in the ninja competitions and stuff. Then you got to cross those, and you have to lachey to this like door with a handle, and turn it, and then dismount. So I thought that was a good new idea, and I was really impressed because all 4 obstacles were really good, and that's an achievement because I think it's one of the first times we've had 4 new obstacles in a finals episode. They all worked very well, so I was happy. Now, on to obstacles that don't work that well. The sideways was in 5th position, and it's not bad, but it's just, like I said last time, it's just not the best idea. But they changed this week a bit. You have to, the part on the track, instead of just being a handle, is like another red board, like the other ones. So I think this is a slight improvement because it makes the thing look more like uniform, I guess. Like it doesn't look as awkward, but it's still not a very good obstacle. Then of course I don't know why I'm doing this out of order. Then, of course, we had the Warp Wall, Salmon Ladder, and Spire Trap in the usual spots. So I say overall it's a pretty good course, but let's look at the competitors. I'm going to be honest here that I don't remember much about the competitors in this episode because it was like 4 weeks ago, and I've seen them all since, and or all the ones that advanced, I've seen them since. So I can't differentiate them very well, but we had Jake Murray in first place, Daniel Gill was runner-up, and the weird thing was that even though they were the top two, they didn't have a power tower for them in the semifinals because there's like no reward to be given out, so they just didn't have it. But it felt weird to have it in like the first phase and then the finals, but not have it in the middle, the semifinals. I get why it was done that way, but it seems awkward. But you know, it is what it is, and they ended up having to cut the first episode Power Tower out, so it was already awkward without this. So whatever. So they both cleared pretty 1 second apart. Yeah, they were close. Then we had Cameron Baumgartner, who's a good one. He's new. Then we have Tyler Gillette, Adam Rail. They all cleared. Jackson Twait was the only one to fail Spire Trap. Jody Avila failed the dungeon, and so did the rest of the people on the leaderboard. Donovan Matoyer, John Alexis Jr., Flip Rodriguez, Chris DeGangi, and Jamie Rowan. So I'm glad he made the cut because he barely made it last year. So I mean, he didn't make it last year. So I'm glad he was able to squeeze by this year because it was close. Then we had Jesse LeBrecq and Sandy Zimmerman on the women's leaderboard, and they failed the 9th and 8th obstacle respectively. Oh, and I'm looking at the other results. The kid did not advance, which was surprising because after all the he's one of the hyped up people from last year, but he didn't move on. He failed the corkscrew and wasn't, he had to make it to 9th obstacle at least, and he couldn't. Nate Hansen, he was the one that was really short, but he's a good competitor. And unfortunately, he failed the burn rubber, which probably his height didn't help there. But I hope he'll be back. He was a good competitor this year. Janique Levette failed burn rubber. Okay. She did well in the past, so she'll probably be back too. Caitlin Bergstrom failed off the hook. One of the only off the hook fails. Who else? I'm just looking through the list. Oh, Grant failed the corkscrew. He's out. Grant always has trouble in the back half of the finals, and he just missed it this year. Oh wow, Kevin Bowl, Abel Gonzalez. Who else? They failed the corkscrew. Oh yeah, and Alyssa Beard failed clockwork, which is really surprising. They showed her kind of early on, which made me think she might not do that well, but I was surprised to see her fail that early. It almost seems like they saved her for the end because it was like a surprise fail. But yeah, so I wasn't really expecting that out of the blue fail there, but it happens. And that obstacle was new, and it looked pretty tough to me, so I can understand it'd be tough. Oh, and then Jonathan Horton also failed clockwork. Alright, we're going to move on to episode 2 now. Well, episode 6, semifinals 2. The course is pretty similar. It has, they swapped out off the hook for spring forward, which, you know how I compared the clockwork to spring forward before? It seems weird that these two are like paired together and back to back in the course, because they're kind of, not so that they're the same thing, but they're both like cliché obstacles that have kind of the same function. So it seems weird that they're together, but it's not the end of the world. It's just interesting to me. And then the two new obstacles, clockwork and burn rubber, are still in there. But the 5th obstacle is the return of the slingshot from the first qualifier episode. And it's kind of repetitive, but at least they tried. They slide that back in instead of just not change anything at all. And then that's it. The rest of the course remained the same. The new obstacles, the 4 new obstacles from the previous episodes still felt pretty fresh, so it wasn't too bad having some of the same stuff at that point. So first place here was Joe Moravsky. he cleared in just under 5 minutes, which was really good. They kept saying he had a dad bod because of quarantine and stuff like that, but he did really well. So I don't see it because he looked strong and just consistent through the course. So yeah, he looked good. Then we had Lucas Rielli, who was good to see. Well, actually, we didn't see him because it said they skipped him, so that sucks. Just skipped the second place person, but whatever. Oh, and then they skipped third and fourth, too. Austin Gray and RJ Roman. And Austin Gray, I didn't know at the time, but skipping over him makes no sense. Spoiler alert. Yeah. It's really weird how they did that with the adding this year. They skipped a lot of the best people. But then we have Michael Torres and Najee Richardson were the other two clears in this course. So we had half clears, and then the other six that advanced, the other six on the main leaderboard were the farthest fastest people. Oh yeah, about Najee's run. During it, they said that Najee has only cleared one semifinals course in the past. And that's weird to think of because he's one of like the best ninjas really. But then when you think about it, like last year he had Angry Birds, then he had the nail clipper in season 9. So it kind of makes sense, but it's still a weird fact to me, considering how good he's been. Okay, anyway, the rest of the people that moved on are Amir Malik, who failed the Spire Trap, David Wright, Dan Polizzi, Thomas Stillings, Joshua Lewis, and Jesse Graff, who barely made it onto the main leaderboard, but she was top of the women's leaderboard, so not too much of a big deal. She failed the corkscrew, which again was a really tough one. It got a lot of people. And then the other woman advancing from this one was Jerry DiRulio, who failed the fifth obstacle. Okay, so who else competed of note? Oh yeah, Megan Martin failed the burn rubber. She misstepped. She stepped too short and she missed a tire and kind of rolled off of it. And that sucks for her because she's a really good competitor, but the balance obstacles can get anyone, and all of them can, but the balance one, especially this one, is pretty tough. Then we have who else is on here? Sean Bryan. He failed the slingshot. I forgot, and they skipped him, which I thought was insane considering how well he's done in the past. If that's the end for him, they should show that. I thought, but that's their track record this season, so whatever. He misjudged the slingshot, and they showed that to us just like after the commercial break, but that's a shame. Then they had they showed all these people together, the people that have been on all the seasons, Lauren, Brian, and David. None of them advanced. David and Brian failed the corkscrew, and Lauren failed the burn rubber. They all got skipped and none of them are advancing, so that kind of sucked. But I was glad that we got some kind of coverage for who they are and how long they've been doing it. What else? Tiana Weberly failed Clockwork, which is another disappointment, but it's a tough obstacle. And apparently they skipped her. I forgot about that, which is also weird. I guess they had a lot of big names in these semifinals episodes, so they had to skip people, but when you see how many, it's crazy. Lance Pekus failed the burn rubber. I forgot about that. Tage Harrington, he was the really light guy, I think, who failed the slingshot, so he's not moving on. Then Ben Milik failed Clockwork, so that's another early fail that will not advance. And now we're gonna advance on to the finals course, which starts with the shrinking steps and spring forward, so same as before. I think it's weird that spring forward was on one semifinals but not the other. But it's kind of like an advantage to the people that did it previously, I think. Not that it's a big deal, but it seems slightly unfair, but it is what it is. I know they don't want to rebuild the course in the same place, I guess. And then we had the falling shells, which were a really tough obstacle, especially for third position. It's basically these ledges that you have to grab midair, and then you gotta swing on them to the next one. And the first two aren't too bad, but the third one you have to do a backwards grab, like similar to the Angry Birds grab, but not as crazy. But yeah, that was still pretty brutal, and it got a lot of people, and it almost got Najee, which is a great recovery, but it almost got him. So yeah, that was a tough obstacle. Then we had the Diamond Dash, which is, we've seen a lot of that sort of obstacle, but it's better than repeating the Spain Bridge, I think. So that's better than nothing. Then we have the Spin Hopper, which is back. It hadn't been in the season before this, so I didn't mind seeing it. You know, it's okay to bring back some of the previous season obstacles as they always do. So yeah, that was good. Then we had the wall and salmon ladder. Then we had Slam Dunk come back, which was in my region last year. And this got a lot of people, but we'll get to that. Yeah, it seemed tougher than it did in the last year, actually. Then we had Dragon back, which I like. Well, this obstacle was kind of like a combination of the Stair Hopper and Big Dipper. Oh, and also the Slingshot, I'd say. So you have to start by going up the back of the dragon, which is basically hopping up these steps. And unlike the Stair Hopper, they give like a tiny stopper on the back, so you can't go back, so you can't like slide backwards, which makes it slightly easier, but it still look tough. Then you have to go down this like the curved back of the dragon, like back down the back. And that got a lot of people because you had to control this bar on these slick railings, and then you had to control it across this bungee part, which is similar to the slingshot element. And it looked tough to me because there wasn't much space for you to put the bar over the. There wasn't much room for the bar, so you had to be really accurate with how you moved, or else you'd fall through it. And then basically you had to go up the second part of the back using stairs and go back down it and back to like another bungee. So it was basically the same thing twice. But then you had to dismount onto the platform, which had another of those weird wall things before it that spin. So you had to either jump over it or like push through it. And that got one person, which was a shame. Because I didn't realize it was going to move. I was like, what happened? But yeah. So that obstacle was pretty tough. It got a good number of people, I think. And then it ended as usual with the spider trap. So for the finals, the first place person was Jake Murray. And pretty, not too far ahead, but he was significantly ahead of all the other people. So he did well. 3:56 was his time. Then the runner-up was Daniel Gill at 4:12, and then Lucas Rielli 4:33, Najee Richardson 4:36, Austin Gray 4:40, Adam Rail 6:24, Jesse Lebrecq. Oh yeah, Jesse Lebrecq cleared the course, and she becomes she already cleared the semifinals last year, but she became the fourth. That's the fourth time a woman has cleared a semifinals course, so that was good. They were excited about that. So, and it'd been a while before last year, so it was pretty significant. And then the only person that didn't finish but made it to the top 8 was Amir Malik. And so of those 8 people that finished, they all got seated to compete on the Power Tower. And before we move on to the Power Tower part, let's just look at some of the really surprising fails we had. We had lots of fails on the 3rd and 8th obstacle, including Jessie failed the 3rd obstacle in the second half of the finals. And it was like, she didn't even fail the hard part. She failed like just the transition. And you can tell she just missed, and she was really surprised, you could tell. So that sucks, because she could have gone all the way, I think, if she had better luck. But it is what it is, and I know she'll be back next time. Hopefully do better. What else? Yeah, Jackson Twait failed the falling shelves. Jerry DeRulio. Chris DeGanzi. and David Wright. Okay. Oh, and Thomas Stillings. Yeah, there's some good people following that. And as I said, Najee almost fell on it, but he did like a really good one-hand grab, which could be seen in the trailer for the season. So I see why they showed that because that was really cool. Oh, and the other headline obstacle was the slam dunk, mainly because it took out Joe, which is like, what is it? He always qualified. He always makes it through the regional courses without falling. So that was crazy. He just missed the transition to the second ball. And what was kind of interesting was after his the first round of the night was his protege. What's his name? Joshua Lewis. And after he failed, Joe said like he failed the same spot as Joe, and Joe was like, I have to be careful on that. And then he failed the exact same spot. So that was interesting. It was like a foreshadow for the result. But it happens. It was just, and I like how he congratulated the other winner. So that was good to see. And let's just see who else failed the other stuff. Jody Avila failed slam dunk. John Lexus Jr. These are all top people failing slam dunk. They should do good at that. But yeah. Oh, and RJ Roman failed dragon back. Jamie Ron failed dragon back. Cameron Baumgartner. Flip Rodriguez. Yeah, a lot of good people failed dragon back too. So this course was pretty rough. I would have liked to have maybe a more upper body centered final, just to be more like stage 3, I guess. But it was a good course. Like just judging it by final standards, I enjoyed it. So yeah. Now let's check out the Power Tower, which was the finale they chose this year. And I was disappointed. Like I wanted a more official finale than just like a racing format. But at the same time, I don't think they wanted to do it like that. But with the short notice of it all, they had to kind of compromise and improvise. So that's what they settled on because they already had it up there. So I don't really count it as an official. I count it as an official season, but I wouldn't count this winner as like a real total victory just because it's such a different circumstance this year. But it was still a good competition, I think. So anyway, they seeded the 8 people to compete. The fastest person and the slowest person to qualify competed. Then the second fastest and second slowest. So basically like the advantage to going fast was that you were seeded against a weaker, although it wasn't necessarily weaker, but a slower person in the finals. So the first matchup we saw was Jake Murray, who was the fastest on the course, versus Amir Malik, who was the only one that didn't finish the course but qualified. And surprisingly, Amir beat Jake. I think he was the lightest one to compete. Yeah, he was definitely the lightest one to compete on the tower. So he was a lot more efficient with his weight and all that. And he just flew past Jake, so it was actually a pretty easy win for him. Which is weird considering the placements they had in the previous round. But then again, Amir didn't finish the course, and he wasn't necessarily going for time on that, so it was a different type of situation. And then we had Jessie Lebrecq versus Daniel Gill. Jessie Lebrecq became the first female competitor to try the Power Tower, and it ended up that Daniel beat Jessie, so he ended up moving on to the finals, and alongside Amir. Then it was Lucas Reale versus Adam Rail. Who won that? Oh yeah, Adam Rail won that battle. Yeah, that's right. Duh. And then the last battle was between Najee and Austin Gray. And just because, like, I recognize Austin Gray a lot less, I assumed it was going to be Najee that won that battle. But it was another surprise because Austin ended up beating him and qualified for the finals. So it ended up being Austin, Adam, Daniel, and Amir. So it was interesting. Then we had Austin Gray versus Amir Malik. And I was kind of betting on Amir after the first round where he just flew through the whole thing, but he ended up slipping on the stairs, I think. So Austin actually took that match. So, as I said earlier about skipping Austin, it's surprising because he did so well in this that you would think they'd show him more and give him more coverage beforehand. And they had this all filmed within a day of each other, so it's not like they didn't realize when they were editing it that he'd do well. So I don't get skipping him on all the other parts, but it is what it is, and he did well on that. So then we had Adam Rail versus Daniel Gill, and this is kind of what I expected. Daniel Gill beat Adam, but they're both good competitors, so it was still an interesting race to watch. So it came down to Daniel Gill versus Austin Gray, and I didn't know what would happen, but I was kind of rooting for Daniel after the last year thing where he just lost to the stage 4, especially after Drew, after winning, got arrested and all that. It kind of invalidated that win, so I was hoping Daniel Gill could get more of a consolation for last year and become the new leader or whatever, and he did. So he beat out Austin Gray to the buzzer, and he became the new champion. Although, as I said before, I don't think it's the same thing as a regular champion where there's no guaranteed finisher, as opposed to this is a guaranteed winner of these races. But it's still an accomplishment, and he got his $100,000. He didn't get $1 million this year, but he got $100K, which is still worth it for what he did, and I'm glad it ended like that. So yeah, the Power Tower was interesting because it had some surprising results, but it's also not an ideal finale. And for a lot of people, having this 4-stage course is the big part of the season. It's part that I always look forward to. So hopefully they can get that back up, and eventually once this virus stuff, can go away. So, one more thing about the Power Tower is that it started out with the form of steps and poles and then the dropping shelves, but midway through, before the second matchups, they replaced the steps with these cliffhanger ledges. They weren't challenging looking, they look pretty simple to cross, but it's a slight step up from just the steps, I guess. So I saw people saying they should have had this cliffhanger part throughout the episode, but I kind of liked how they switched it in between rounds, because it made it seem like it was getting harder, which I thought made it look a bit more interesting. So I liked how they did that. And it's good because otherwise we wouldn't have had the cliffhanger at all this season. So I'm glad, I realized that when they put that in. I'm glad they got in at the last minute. So, again, it wasn't a traditional season where you get so much. It was a bridge season, I guess. It was 8 episodes instead of 15 or 16 like it usually is. And, it was a lot less obstacles overall, a lot less competitors. I'd say, I liked it, but it wasn't as enjoyable as usual. It wasn't the best season, and I wouldn't say it's the, I don't think it's the worst season. It still beats out some of the earlier ones, and especially given the circumstances, I can, I see what happened, and it's not just horribly done. It's just bad luck. And then they had the Drew thing happen. Right when they thought they were done with it all, they had to re-edit the episodes to eliminate him. And yeah, that's just an awful situation. Beyond the editing. But, after he's here, they won't have to worry about him at least. So, anyway, I thought this season was pretty good. I like actually how they made the finishers, even if you finish, you have to be fast to advance. You're not guaranteed to move on. Because I think that adds an element of pressure for going fast throughout the whole course. So, I appreciate that. And it gives people something to think about before going for the mega wall. Should they go, or should they just finish the course so they got better time? So, that's something different. I mean, I assume they're going to get rid of that rule after this format's gone and they're just doing it to save time, but I still appreciate it. So, it's a small victory. What else happened this season? They had the kind of less variety between episodes of obstacles, and you can see, since they're in the same location all season, why they wouldn't want to change everything every week. And I get that, but hopefully with more notice next year, whatever they end up doing, they'll be able to have some more selection for that. And especially because I'm afraid that next season's going to have to be different too. I hope they can get the obstacles under control because, like March is coming up, and I assume they're going to try to film in that time span, like March to April, like they do in most seasons. And, I think the thing is improving, but it'll probably they'll want to be cautious about it, and it'll probably end up being more like this than most seasons would be. I think it'll be an improvement, and they'll have more flexibility, but I think it'll still be like different. And unfortunately, I definitely can't see myself going to like a Florida taping next year, just because I'm sure they won't have spectators. But so anyway, I hope that they can make the most of that next year with more foresight into the issue, and just like plan more obstacles, plan more variety, get maybe a 4-stage course would be good, because as I said, the Power Tower was okay, but it wasn't the best ending they could have done if they had more time to plan, I think. So yeah. And honestly, like this season, the ratings dropped, significantly, and I think it's because of, the format being different. It's kind of lower budget, and maybe the time of year, because now it's like a fall show instead of a summer show. But I think also like it's just the obstacles are being kind of predictable, so they have to twist that up more. So hopefully they look at that and they decide to bring more variety and to, maybe have a more exciting finale next year. And, there's other things, like the whole Drew Dressel situation might have turned some people away, which is, just a hot mess. But still, I think in the future they can definitely turn things around by just, hopefully being able to go back to normal soon, but also just by having more thought out courses. But, we'll see about that. And honestly, they got lucky that Drew didn't make it to the top 8, which I was wondering, like, what are they going to do? But he's probably going to make it to the top Power Tower thing. But they got lucky because I heard he failed on the Dragon Back, so he just missed out on the next round. And if he made it to the finals, I don't know if they could have shown that, because especially if he won, then they couldn't have shown the season at all, because they can't show Drew. So we got lucky with that we have a season, I guess. But yeah. Anyway, I hope that also they'll have less editing issues next year without Drew. So hopefully that's another thing that they can do to improve it. And I sound negative about all of this, but I still enjoyed the season. It wasn't my favorite, but it wasn't too bad either. So I'm looking forward to next season, and I've enjoyed, well, I haven't made that many of these, but I've enjoyed talking about the show a bit on this channel, and I'll see you next summer.